Hey, what's up, y'all? Back at it once again. It's a Koski of Fun Day. Dropping this knowledge from you and for yours. You know, we always do African history here all the time. Won't be no better place to do it. And I'd like to thank my ancestors for giving me the knowledge and wisdom and understanding to do this. And I'd like to thank you for watching and subscribing. The subscription's been going up. I'm very grateful for that. The like button's been getting hit more. I'm very grateful for that. So without further ado, let's keep it going. This is dealing with the Black Pacific. And we come out of the Journal of Polynesian Society, Volume 2. Many people don't know about this, but there's been a lot of important works been going on over there. New Zealand, Australia, and places like that. And as you see right here, it says it's a notable fact that the sun god of the Maoris was called Ra, meaning they had an Egyptian influence over there in New Zealand and the Pacific Island coast. The Pacific Island, places like that, which we're about to show right now. It's gonna blow it up a little bit more for y'all so y'all can see a little bit more better. All right, this is Asiatic Guide to the Pacific by E. Telegraph. It's pretty old. It's going back to 1800 something. But I'm gonna show a more up-to-date version after reading the 1800 version. All right, let's get down to it. 1. Just as the student of natural history take interest in finding some primitive form of animal life has survived the accidents and perils of the centuries and exists in a rare and solitary type of a modern creature, so does the student of ethnology rejoice in coming across some survival in human custom or discovery in the human language which may bridge over the gulf between ancient man and ourselves. To find some old dream still living with power, some indefinite ancient belief is yet still possessing vital stimulation in history search that cause them to hold on to valuable, but others engage in more active struggles of life would deem of little interest and of no useful application. This is the plea which I venture to bring forth for an enumeration of certain coincidences in religious belief once held by the peoples of the old world, and compare them with those who held circuit up to our own day by the natives of the Pacific Island. There is, however, another side to the question. That is, that it's quite possible, even if the main thesis be incorrect, we may be bringing to the surface certain points of interest otherwise liable to be forgotten. And so the research may be valuable for its side issues, even if it may be only provoke a discussion of certain subjects known. 2. In treating of the deities of the people, widely separating the point of distance, geographical and chronological, it may be pointed out there are 2 ways, at least, in which coincidence may be marked. One is a similarity of name, and other, a likeness of an attribute or action. Coincidences of name may be valued as a true and primal identity, even when the legends respecting the life and power of the divine person may differ. Thus, Tane is without a doubt the same god in New Zealand as in Hawaii, though in his former place he's regarded as a male principle, and in the latter a god of light. Just as Apollo is worshipped in one place as the sun, and others as a god of poetry and medicine. Names are sometimes valuable for the purpose of investigation, even when historians are clouded over the race and nationalities of metamorphosis. The first part is paper. The lesser part is devoted to simple curiosities and similar names. The second part, which we're not going to go through this one, it's going to be for another video, is descriptive of certain coincidences in the liturgy action between Asiatic and Polynesian goddesses. We're going to do that in the second part. The ancient gods. 3. It is well-known fact that when the Chaldean people occupied part of Asia, which afterwards made so famous, their Semitic tongue displaced that of a nation called the Arcadians, who used an unanimous form of speech. There is no good in going over this ground, which has been thoroughly explored by profound Asiatic scholars. One thing is not so fully determined is the origin of the Chaldean or Babylonian system of religion. In those ancient days, religion and worship spread from people to people, and there was good cause to believe that the Babylonians adopted many of their deities from the older inhabitants of the land. There is no thus far and no further in speculation I may be asking them from what people did demand of Akkad themselves adopted object of worship. Many of the deities bear the names of either Semitic or Akkadian explanation. It is curious that many of these names have either had a Polynesian significance or the similar names mentioned in the sacred lore of Polynesian. By this, I do not infer that the Chaldeans or the Akkadians adopted Polynesian deities or vice versa, but rather suggest that both the Asiatic and Oceanic people may have received their priestly teachings from a common source. In the thousands of years lying behind the history and the names of certain holy persons and the gist of certain sacred legends may have been handed down from pre-Aryan, pre-Semitic, or pre-Turan people. 4. We are told that the principal deity of Chaldea, or the first person of their triad, was called Anu. He represents the universe as upper and lower regions, and when divided into upper and lower regions or heaven, was called Anu. The first triad comprised of Anu, E, and Bel. Anu is heaven, the lord of the starry heavens, the lord of the darkness. Now, White, in his ancient Maori history, when related to the cosmology of the natives, repeatedly referred to as Anu as space, and speaks of the local rebel angels in the war of heaven as the Kanu Anu, or the flock of the cold space. 5. The second person in the Chaldean Trinity was Baal. This word is seen to use the title, the Lord, but this may have been a later meaning as Caesar was in Rome. Further identifies the Polynesian Via, or the Maori Via, he with Baal or Baal, B-A-A-L. The old Spartan Bella, the sun. The third person, Ea, is a very remarkable one. He was the Lord of the deep. Ea, the fish, he was also an impersonation of divine intelligence and a teacher of mankind. The original sacred books are attributed to him. Ea was the god not only of the material watery deep, but also the mystic deep, the house of the deep knowledge. In Polynesia, the word Ea appears to mean above the water, the rise to the surface, liberty, salvation, spirit, thus conferring to our translation of the name. 6. Of the other goddess, the most conspicuous are Anat or Nana, earth, the wife of Anu, heaven. In both the Chaldean and the Polynesian legends, heaven and earth are divided asunder, but remain husband and wife. Nana in Maori means nurse. In Marquesan, a woman recovering from childbirth. In Ghana, a mother. So in many languages, it means auntie or mother. The Maori Mother Earth was named Papa. And her husband, heaven, was Rangi or Ranke. Raki may be related to another Asiatic word for heaven or sky, used in Hebrew as Rakia, the firmament. Mama and Papa are words well known to philanthropists as interchangeable for mother and father over a large area of the world's surface. Papa means father in Maori and other oceanic tongues, although generally transferring the foundation, it means the name of Mother Earth. 7. For purposes of this paper, I include the Egyptians among Asiatic people, relying upon the statements of the learned authors that the Egyptians were not African, but Asiatic immigration into Africa. Now, on number 7, we know that is false. That's been proven time and time again, but they couldn't really see them as African people. They had to see them as Asiatics. You know, that was just part of the white man's God complex. He couldn't deal with them being Africans. All right, there's only really falsehood in the paper right there. Number 8, it has been widely remarked the fact that Egyptian Ra, the sun, is the same word as the Phoenician Ra, the sun. In fact, more prominence have been given to it than desirable since it's only a single coincidence. But if it's backed up by 100 others, it becomes an important factor in the argument. El, or Ra, is the Babylonian form of the Syrian Ashura, the name simply meaning God. So the word is not only Egyptian, but widely spread sacred name. We should notice too that Pa means a fortified town in New Zealand, also means town in Egyptian. So that the Pa Ra, sun town, Heliopolis in Egyptian meant the same in Polynesian. In spite of the assertion made by the early missionaries that the Maori had no gods and no idea of worship properly so called, we have found out that this is not the case. There is plain evidence that even some of the sun worship is in some of the older traditions. I may ensure instance the following quotation. One of the party asked, while all the others were silent, "Where are the people?" She answered, "They're out yonder on the plain." He asked, "What are they doing?" She answered, "They are chanting songs and offering sacrifices to Ra, the sun." He asked, "For what purpose?" She answered, "To suppress the ill feeling of the people and to give quiet to the land." This very ancient legend, that of Hapopo, fragments of which are related to other authors, but in its age is apparent in the very obscure and mystical state for which such fragments appear. 9. Sir George Gray collection of the Maori legends may be found in a well-known tale of the Maui noosing the sun. Maui had noosed the sun and began beating that deity with an enchanted weapon. The sun screamed out, "Why am I spitting by you, old man? Do you know what you are doing? Why should you wish to kill Tama Nu Ti Ra?" Thus was learned his second name. So before this, the sun was evidently known as Ra, afterward as a great Tama, the Ra. In Maori, Tama means sun. In Polynesian generally, it means son or child. Although purists may object to such pronunciation, I have little doubt, but if written in English, the letters instead of Polynesian, the word will clearly resemble Tatama or Tatara. And if it be so, it makes a curious coincidence with another Egyptian name for the sun god, Tum. In the ritual funeral, we find it has been made a lord of the age who has no limit. I am eternal substance. I am Tum, made forever. According to Bagush, the sun temple at Heliopolis held a sacred seal chamber in the form of a pyramid called Ben Ben, in which we kept the two barks of the sun. This explains the sentence. He held his father Ra in the exalted house of the obelisk, the morning bark of Ra, the evening bark of Tum. Tum, T-U-M, being the evening sun. Perhaps explains why it's the second name in the Maori story. So also is the Egyptian Osiris and the son of Ra, as Horus, later the son of Osiris. That Tumara was invoked and may be inferred upon a baptism chant. May Tum and Tang and Tama meet. May the light come. May the gods of Tai Waki and Tama bring light. Ball of light come. The name Thomas for the sun is widely known in Asia. It's most certainly that Damus and Tammuz, Adonis, is the same deity as Shamas and Shamas, the sun god of Chaldea. Tammuz or Tamiz, meaning the son of life, as a Z-I means life. Tam, T-A-M, means sun. Ishtar and her husband Tamiz, the son of life. This shows too how the sound of Tum or Toma or Tama was persistent in any way of writing. We find Tammuz, Dammuz, Tamiz, Shamash, Shamas, and Tamas. 10. Sin not thy right hand, Samash on thy left. Upon mankind trust not. Bend thy eyes upon me, trust to me. I am Ishtar of Arabella. Sin and Ishmael were the lunar and solar deities of Chaldea. The second part of this paper identifies Sin with the lunar deity of Sena of Polynesia, and Shamas have been discovered in part 9 as being the sun deity with Tammuz. Mahana was the Arabian's one of the three goddesses of the dark goddess of God. At Giza, the deity Maoris is the chief object of the worship. The Greeks identify him with Jupiter. Whether either of these names are related to the Maori Mana, M-A-N-A, power, especially the supernatural power, is doubtful. But Mana seems to be impersonated in an incarnation where the soul of the deceased Maoris leapt towards the heaven. Dr. Shortland does not translate either Yenta or Mana. Isha dealt with the second part of this paper is the name of Senna, but says, now up you mount to your Ana, to your Mana, to thousands above. Although in most places in Polynesia, Mana means power, prestige. In some places it means thunder, so it might be connected with the memory of Janus, Jupiter, Adonis. Well, speaking of Hades, in the Austrian belief therein, Professor says the land of no return. Here, Alet, the god of the queen of the mighty country, rule with Tu, the god of death. In New Zealand, Tu is not the god of death, but of war, which is one of the most dreadful deities. In Mangagena, he is regarded as a god of Hades, residing in the land of silence, where the gift of speech is unknown. 13. After the first part of the triad of Chaldeans, Anu, E, and Bel, had passed away, the second triad took their place, Sin, Samas, and Ramaman, as moon, sun, and the power of the atmosphere. Sin and Shama we already spoken of, but Ramaman we may give notice that his sign is generally the lightning or the triple-fold thunderbolt, in which he says the Lord of the flaming sword, which he is either connected with in prehistoric thought with the enemy of Ramamama, the moon Ramamama, or not. It is possible that the Polynesian word Ramama, a torch, is a compound of light, may be connected with this. In the Gambier Islands, Ramamama means to illustrate, and Ramamama is the current common oceanic word. For the moon, Wanatahiti, Mama Rama 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 means light. The Ramaman, also called the view or the pew, and the Polynesian word pura or the pura to shine or to glow, seem to have the kindred words for fire. In Fuji, Voga is the moon, and the Vola Vola, perpetual white. The Austrian words of blow is formed on the root havu, which resembles the Polynesian word havu wind. 14. Referring to the triad spoken in 13, the person called Sin, the moon, was called by the Arcadians Uraki, a word denoting shining. Elalu, Bel, had numerous families. His elder son was a moon god called Ur. The most ancient city of Ur, the home of Abraham, was the central seat of the moon worshiping in Chaldea. It was the city of light. From Ur, light is derived from the Assyrian Ura, light and day, the Hebrew Amor. The Mori, the Ura, to be red to glow, and the Ura glow seems akin to this, and some European roots. Although I'm aware that in Latin, Euro, I burn, is on later on to the root word of us and ush. If Hebrew Amor, light, is relative to Ura or the borrowed word, it seems a curious likeness to the Mori, Ayo, daylight, the bright day, the visible world. Ao will sometimes personify, come O Ayo, and add thy power. It appears as a moon cosmology, and then intensity and spaces brought forth offspring, and they brought forth day and night. Ayo. Sir William Rawlinson, speaking of the Chaldean god of the atmosphere, says the probable reading in his name is Ir or Erum, the well-known of the gods in the Mendian pantheon, who presided over the firmament. Strader writes that the 28th day was sacred to Ao. The Austrian deity Ao is called the intelligent guide, the Lord of the visible world, the Lord of the knowledge of glory and life by Cooper. Ao is the visible world in Maury. 15. Maia, the mother of the nurse, a name of Shebi, the great mother presiding over childbirth, perhaps a sister of the Indian Maya, that the beautiful goddess resembled the Tahiti Maya, a maiden, a midwife, and a Mayada, the dam of animals. Matua, the goddess of silence, also coincides with the Mari Mutu to keep silence. Mari Mututu to cut short in the end, with the masculine essential of Mututu Iya, the god of silence. In Persian, Zinda Avatar is fire, both as a thing and a person. In Polynesian, Ata is a person as dawn, also associated with the morning light to reflect the mirror, the soul, the spirit of a thing, the essence. Schrader speaks of the Chaldean goddess Atatar as coinciding with Arbita Artan, the moon. The Maori Ata is apparently compound word of the Atu room, the moon, and is very likely our hair. The Onus, the heaven of India, also called Vanaruna, the name which reads in Polynesia, Vanarun, the space above. Maori, Wanarungagana, and one of the air deities was Pashan, the sun. Of this deity, the commentary of the Ria Viga says, the golden ships of Opan or Pusan, which cross the watery sky. The Maori Punarana to glow explains his name, and doing so comments on another deity, Anahana, the dawn. But these are permanent relationships, are apparently a relation to the Polynesian Ana, to shine and to glow. The Puta Mautan Ana, the sun, and Tahitian Ana Nana Hana Nana, splendor, glory, and awfulness. The Diva, an Asiatic name for God, may be not original, but dialectically DNS, a name for them people of the Ria Vegan. People of the Vegan, the firmament and expansion of heaven in Tahiti and Hawaii. The living, the Beba, and the Dia Via are visible heavens in the upper region of the air. Riva was the name of the Indian Venus, also the name of Karna, the sun god's child. Karna may be a botanical word, kind of shining radiant. Travis Vista, or Travis Star, the be a creator and a practitioner, was apparently once thunder. When the clever Vista had turned the well-made golden thousand-edged thunderbolt in the island of fate, or Feti, the word thunder is Bashnuzan. It's almost certainly the thunder and the thunder deity of the Maori was the Wataturi. Considering makes an allusion to the Egyptian Tamen, Tanen, as the god of the heavens, and may be named coincide with the Tani, the god of the light, the first person in the Hawaiian Trinity. 16. Shiva was one of the ancient gods of India, and his name means black, dark, destroying. Shiva in Polynesia means dark color, black, or blue. Secondly, sacred is a sacred offering. In Hawaii, the Puamana Hawa is the black or sacred hog offered in the sacrifice. All right. While the Hiawatha Hayatu is applied to the name of the goddess, to the gods and the great chief. The double trident of the Hindu Shiva was found marked on some of the stones on the island of Mokulakea, the Sandwich Islands. It is curious to notice that this word Shiva means to dance along in Samoan and Tonga, a song to sing, a heathen festival. So also the Indian Saran, the sun seems to be connected with the Polynesian festival, as the Samoan Salua, a song of thanks, the Tahitian Herera, a native dance, Hawaiian hula to dance, and Soma, the sacred beverages offered to the Hindu gods. The Homa Mama and the Zenith festival appears in Polynesian as the Malagreba Homa to offer the fruits to the gods. Hari, the name Vishnu, is perhaps the Maori Hara to dance in a ceremonial manner while holding up baskets containing offerings. The Mana of Venom, which often drops the H, the Ari, the name of a god. It often appears that the Polynesians were not kept the names of the Asiatic god in reverence. It appears that if the Polynesians have not kept the name of the Asiatic gods in reverence, some memory of them seems to linger in their festival and dance, which we're going to show. As to their priesthood, note in Dark Masters, the Ratu is the chief priest and the spiritual head of the community. This title, Ratu, is used in Fuji like Sir or Mr. before the name of a chief, is like in Samoa. In Samoa, the title is the chief builder as Latu. It is linked with the Java Ratu, a king, and the Datu, or chief of the Malaysian Archipelago. 17. Summing it up necessary, concise account of many coincidences, we find these many words. Anu, Bel, E, Nana, Raki, Ra, Thomas, Sin, Mara, Isis, Tu, Raman, Bro, Ur, Omor, Mia, Matu, Atar, Jiva, and a couple many more. You know what I'm saying? With these comparisons, it seems to present sufficient data to allow us to consider whether or not sufficient grounds for further study on the subject. The likeness of the names may be the mere coincidence, but on the other hand, it may point to our thoughts backward to the day behind Greeks and Chaldeans, behind Akkadians and Polynesians, so it's time concerning where there's either no script nor legend, and so cause us to remember the tiny spaces of our time in history. Even the mythological history covers. This is good if it teaches us humility in our research, even if we cannot do little to uplift the unpalatable and invulnerable veil which hides the childhood of our race. Now, this right here has just been done not too long ago. This will confirm everything I was just talking about. The other part, like I said, came in the 1800s, you know what I'm saying, about 1850, 1870, around that range. And it was, it was a pretty difficult read. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you themselves, the Maori and the New Zealanders, talking about it themselves, about what they had and went through and stuff.
Post-Atlantean civilization? Or could it have been the
video messing up? Let's just get into it soon, though. But it's going to talk about who left them stones there and who brought it on through. Hopefully this will stop messing up soon enough. This is highly important to the video. To me, it is.
Descendants of the famous navigator and discoverer of New Zealand, Maui. As most school children know from the myths and legends, Maui ensnared the sun. This legend is a direct reference to Maui's knowledge of navigation and celestial observations. So what else do we know about Maui?
Black guy. See how black he look?
Maui was basically the person who navigated the Pacific, probably navigated the world. Okay, if you go back to all the Pacific Islands history, what's the history of your islands? Maui fished it up. You come to New Zealand, the North Island, the great fish of Maui. The South Island is canoe.
The North Island is said to resemble a stingray, with the mouth of the ray at Palliser Bay. During Maui's circumnavigation of the South Island, and upon reaching Kaikoura, he spotted the mountains of the North Island and sailed across the straits to Palliser Bay, where he was greeted by the red-haired chieftainess of Orokoroko. If Maui first arrived in the South Island, where did he land? According to Waitaha and Ngāi Tahu oral history, Maui came from the Southern Ocean and landed at Bruce Bay. Well, I'm standing here now at Bruce Bay, and about 100 kilometers due east of me rises the highest mountain in South Island, known as Aoraki or Mount Cook. This mountain, on a clear day, could be seen over 200 kilometers out to sea. And any sailor or navigator using the westerly wind belt known as the Roaring Forties and looking for land would have headed.
As stated before, we read about the guy capturing the sun, Maui, you know what I'm saying, which was a metaphor for the way he navigated the planet. Maui being an Egyptian name, so the city of Maui and places in Hawaii and stuff like that, those are African Egyptian names. It's going to get into that if this computer ever acts straight. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to give it time. I want to cut the video short. It displays a lot of info. Yeah, I want to cut it short because it displays a lot of info and whatnot. But we're going to get into it. This is also going to add some more meat to the thing if we ever get around to it, you know. It's going to put more meat on the plate, also backing up that the Egyptians did come to these waters way, way before.
Initially, they thought Aoraki was just a mirage amongst the clouds, but before they knew it, they'd made landfall at Bruce Bay. Came, not from the Central Pacific as previously thought, but from the southern
You keep on stopping, they're going to tell you where they come from.
ocean. So who was Maui and where did he come from?
The other story that I know about Maui is that he also came from Egypt.
Some insight to these questions came from epigraphic researcher Barry Fell when he deciphered some ancient petroglyphs on Pitcairn Island which told of damage done to one of Maui's ships in a storm. He also deciphered petroglyphs found in a cave called Casa Pintada in the San Fernando Valley in Chile. These were written in Libyan script declaring that Maui claimed 4,000 miles of the Central and South American coastline for Egypt in 231 BC. Fell was perplexed that a Polynesian ancestral figure was claiming land for Egypt, so he conducted further research and found that Maui was a navigator who'd been commissioned to circumnavigate the world by Eratosthenes, head of the Alexandria Library in Egypt under the reign of Ptolemy III. Maui had been given 6 ships and a crew captained by Rata. It can be deduced from petroglyphs and Polynesian legend that Maui's voyage followed a route that looked something like this. After circumnavigating New Zealand for 3 months, it is believed Maui travelled north to Tahiti, on to Hawaii and across to the Americas. He then sailed south for 4,000 miles along the coastline looking for a passage east. Realizing that their mission to circumnavigate the world had been foiled by the impassable landmass of the Americas, they decided not to return to Egypt to face the music, but instead went back to the islands where they knew they would be welcome. At this point, they entered the realms of Polynesian legend. It seems he made quite a name for himself in Tonga, where there's a massive stone archway named after him. It is called Ha'amonga a Maui, the burden of Maui. The Tongans remember him as a navigator of high esteem and still retain a copy of his star chart to this day. Further proof of Maui's expedition came from a cave in Irian Jaya called the Cave of the Navigators, where Barry Fell deciphered images that told of Maui's visit. This clearly shows that Maui passed through the islands of eastern Indonesia, reprovisioning his ships in the home of the Indonesian rice paddy rat, also known as Rattus exulans or Kiore, the Polynesian rat. After leaving the Cave of the Navigators, Maui experienced strong headwinds, so he chose to head south into the westerly wind belt of the Southern Ocean, arriving at Bruce Bay with rats on board. The possibility that it was Maui who brought the Kiore to New Zealand from eastern Indonesia is strengthened by the fact that some of the earliest Kiore bones come from places that Maui visited: Shag River, Palliser Bay and Hawke's Bay.
And there's an interesting thing that's come to light in more recent years, and that's work done by one of the scientists down at Otago University, and it is Matisha Smith. Yeah, and she is an amazing researcher, very talented woman who's unravelling so much of it for us in the new science. And this is what she shared a few years ago. When we followed the rat line islands, we find there are very ancient rat lines in New Zealand, much older than to the north in the Pacific, much older than those in the Cook Islands or Tonga or Samoa. It looks like those rats went north from here, that New Zealand was settled before many of those islands. And that turns things on its head.
Lisa Matisu-Smith was not the only person who was surprised by the early arrival of rats in New Zealand. This is what Richard Holdaway had to say.
I'm an extinction biologist, and one of the main thrusts of my research is to find out when the first predators arrived in New Zealand, and one of those was the Pacific rat. The first series of dates showed that the rats had been in the South Island for at least 2,000 years. This is completely contrary to the accepted dogma, which is that they arrived at the time of settlement, which is now agreed at 700 to 800 years ago. And it's completely agreed that they came with people. Any other hypothesis just doesn't work. So whoever brought the rats must have arrived in New Zealand and must have visited both the North and South Islands 2,000 years ago.
That date was so early, scientists questioned the carbon dates. Some other form of proof was required. This cave in Hawke's Bay was buried in volcanic ash from the massive Taupo eruption 1,800 years ago. The volcanic tephra flowed over the hillside and into the cave, covering everything inside in a thick layer of ash. A layer scientists can
And there was the floor of this cave about 1,800 years ago. Material came in across the terrain and into the hole and filled it up from there up to here, sort of ponded it in and sealed everything underneath. And therefore we know that the material under here is older than that. There was a bone which had been collected from beneath the ash, and I dated that bone, and the date was consistent with it the rat having died before the ash fell. All we are saying is that the rats arrived around about 2,000 years ago in the North and South Island. Rats were here about 2,000 years ago.
So we now have scientific confirmation through genetic and geological dating that shows that the rats arrived with people over 2,000 years ago. But a government employee by the name of Bruce Mc...
All right, now, so it shows the rats came with the Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? 2,000 years ago, came with the Navigator Maui, M-A-U-I, which is a city and also an island in Hawaii. And as we found out, it's also the name of the South Island in New Zealand is named after him, who was an Egyptian navigator, you know. And that's where the Maoris themselves, as we've seen, date back their history. Giving credit to this journal right here, the Polynesian Journal Society, how that gods are the same and things of that nature. You know, we're going to do a second part of the video where we're going to talk about the worship of Isis, a black woman. Also, you see Shiva, what it was a black god, and they served black stuff when they sacrificed it. That was the high sacrifice, you know, the black hog and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Because black was sacred in a manner it had to deal with. Anyway, this is a Koski of Fun Day saying peace. Hit the like button, subscribe button. We just keep on dropping this history, keep it dropping it down. Peace.